Our next topic concerning polynomials with larger exponents is graphing. Now, we're not actually going to generate a list of points and graph some of these large functions. What we're going to do is instead just look at the leading term in each function and decide what the shape of the graph is going to be. And that's very easy to do. You only need to look at two things. Once the polynomial is in order from the largest exponent term to the smallest exponent term, all you have to do is look at that leading term, the one with the largest exponent, and determine two things about it. Whether the coefficient of that leading term is positive or negative, and whether the exponent on that leading term is even or odd. So let's take a look at a couple of functions. Let's do this one first. F of x equals, and you want to copy this down, 2x to the third power plus 17x squared minus 51x. Alright, this polynomial is already in order of the smallest exponent on x to the the largest exponent on x to the smallest exponent. So negative 2x to the third power is our leading term. Let's circle it. Now, all we have to do is determine two things about this leading term, and we can tell whether the graph will be shaped like an upward cup, a downward cup, or an S shape going upward from left to right, or an S shape going downward from the left to right. Those are the four basic function forms. Now notice the little squiggly lines in between. That means the function can have any number of curves in between. Now if it's a quadratic function where it's x to the second power, it's just going to be one smooth U shape. If it's to the fourth power, it's going to have one bump in it down here. If it's to the sixth power, it's going to have two bumps, etc. And similar things will happen with the other functions. Depending upon the power, it'll have more and more bumps in between the two endpoints at the higher the power. So let's look at this chart and let's make sure we understand it. It says here on this heading is A is positive, A is negative. Well, what's A? Remember our leading term, the A is the coefficient, like in our standard form for a quadratic equation, ax squared. So in this case, A is negative 2. Let's write an additional note here. Coefficient, meaning the number in front of, coefficient of leading term. Okay, so we're looking at that coefficient to see if it's positive or negative. And in this case, it's a negative 2. So we're going to be looking at this column on the chart. Either the shape is going to be like this, an upside down U, or a reverse S. Alright, let's look over here on the chart. If n is even or odd, n is the exponent on that leading term. So let's make that note over here. Exponent on leading term. Alright, so our exponent is odd. It's a 3. So we were in this column for the coefficient. The coefficient was negative. And now we're in this row for the exponent. It's odd. So where those two things meet, the shape of our graph, if we label these A, B, C, and D, the shape of the graph for this function would be graph D. It would be this S shape that's going downward from the left to right. Alright, let's try another function. F of x equals 6x squared minus 8x to the fourth power plus 10x. Alright, before we start, we need to, oops, it's 10x to the fifth power. There we go, let's get a 5 on that. We need to identify who the leading term is. Which term has the highest power of x? And it's not this one. Just because it's first doesn't mean it's the leading term. We should reorder these so our leading term is actually leading. And it would be 10x to the fifth power. because it has the highest exponent. Then we'd have minus 8x to the 4th power, because there's a minus sign in front of it, and then plus 6x squared because there's nothing in front of it. So now we have our leading term right where it's supposed to be, leading the polynomial, and we can just go to our chart now and identify the two things. The coefficient of that term, the a value, is it positive or negative? And it is positive, so we'll be looking in this column. Alright, keep your finger on that column. Now look at the exponent. The exponent is odd, so this column for the coefficient and this column for the exponent, so they meet right here at C. And so the shape of this graph, if we were to actually plot some points, would look like this, or letter C. Now I'm going to give you one more, and I'd like you to try it on your own. Let me put this one down here. H of x equals 1/2 x to the 8th power minus 13x to the 7th power plus 10x squared minus 6. Determine which shape the graph will take on by looking at the leading terms, coefficient, and exponent, and come on back and check your answer.